Sport Australia Hall of Fame is the pre-eminent organisation for the recognition of Australia's greatest sportsmen and women. As is the tradition with all Hall of Fame events, we now have the opportunity to welcome them all. They are led tonight by Victorian Institute of Sport athletes Andrew Coelho and Emily Martin. Ladies and gentlemen, the members and associate members of the Sport Australia Hall of Fame. It's a wonderful moment every year as we introduce these great athletes.
Governor of Victoria, John Landy. Governor of South Australia, Marjorie Jackson Nelson. Distinguished guests, fellow members, associate members, ladies and gentlemen. I welcome you all to this, the 16th annual dinner and induction ceremony of the Sport Australia Hall of Fame. Can I say at this stage how proud we are that two of our members have been appointed state governors. The Hall is an organisation formed to preserve, safeguard and promote all aspects of Australian sporting heritage. As I have said previously, our diverse and multicultural population needs to be informed about our heroes of the past and our great sporting history and tradition. It is up to the Hall of Fame to educate our citizens about our great sporting past.
Let's move to our induction ceremony. And ladies and gentlemen, our first inductees are our new associate members. And the first of those is a man who recently retired as coach of the Australian Wallabies, the rugby union team, the current world champions. Under his coaching, the Wallabies held every major world rugby union title. Would you please welcome Mr. Rod Macqueen. And joining him, one of the most experienced and dedicated sports doctors in the country, the Chief Medical Officer of the Australian Olympic team and the Chairman of the Australian Sports Drug Agency, Dr Brian Sando. Our next inductees are our new members, and what a great honour to welcome them tonight.
He was the Iron Man of world golf, a young Australian who forged his golfing career on the tough American circuit, and for 20 years was one of the game's most resilient performers. Bruce Crampton won the Australian Open in 1956, and when he took on the world, became our first golfing millionaire. In 1972, he was runner-up in the US Masters, PGA, and US Open. A pair of Olympic gold medals from Atlanta and Sydney, and the reputation as one of the world's greatest horsemen underlined Phillip Dutton's contribution to equestrian sports. A cornerstone of Australian teams since 1994, Dutton won 2 world championships, and in the 3-day arena has few peers. In 1998, he was the first foreign rider to be awarded the USA's Rider of the Year award, and 2 years later, he won it again.
Unfortunately, Phillip can't be with us tonight. He's with his wife and new twin girls at home in the United States. We congratulate him, though, on becoming a member of the Sport Australia Hall of Fame for 2001.
For courage and durability, the mighty Awesome Foursome won Australia's hearts in the 90s. Nick Green was part of that team that won gold in the coxless fours at Lake Banyoles in Barcelona in 1992, and was there again at Atlanta 4 years later. A 4-time world champion, Nick Green was part of a team that propelled rowing onto the front pages and into the evening news bulletins. To this day, many believe Peter Hudson was the finest full forward ever to play Australian football. His career statistics fuel the argument. 5 times he kicked 100 goals in a season for Hawthorn, and in 1971 he equalled the VFL record of 150 goals. He was twice Hawthorn's club champion, and All-Australian for his native Tasmania and Victoria. 4 times the leading goal kicker in the league, and is a legend in the AFL Hall of Fame. An Australian squash legend, Michelle Martin dominated the women's game worldwide through the 90s. 6 times she would win the British Open, the game's most prestigious event. She would take her native Australian title 7 times and won the World Open 3 times. A dual Commonwealth Games gold medalist, Martin was ranked #1 in the world for 6 years. From Los Angeles in 1984 through to the Commonwealth Games at Auckland in 1990, Australia cheered home a world-class 400-metre star in Darren Clark. With his classic style and finishing burst, Clark was a favourite in the days when Australia struggled to find Olympic finalists on the track. At both Los Angeles and Seoul, he was pipped for a medal, but his 2 4th placings were regarded as major individual performances. At Auckland in 1990, he won his gold at the Commonwealth Games to complement a pair of silver medals at Edinburgh 4 years earlier.
dapper and successful Andrew Hoy has been a cornerstone of Australia's world-famous three-day team at a trio of Olympics. In Barcelona, he opened his gold medal account. In Atlanta, 4 years later, he made it 2 in a row. And in Sydney, he did what only Dawn Fraser has managed by winning gold in the same event at 3 successive Olympic Games. And just for good measure, he won silver in the individual event as well. In this most grueling and demanding of events, in which the perfect chemistry is demanded between horse and rider, Andrew Hoy has showed his supreme talents on the handsome grey Darrian Powers. Andrew Hoy, a triple gold medalist and Olympic champion.
Members of the Hall of Fame, ladies and gentlemen, I now formally induct Darren Clark, Andrew Hoy, Bruce Crampton, Nick Green, Peter Hudson, Michelle Martin as members of the Sport Australia Hall of Fame, and ask that you please honour the members by acclamation.
Ladies and gentlemen, it is customary at this point of each induction ceremony for the Sport Australia Hall of Fame for the chairman of the selection committee to deliver the official welcome to the new members. Would you please welcome Mr. Robert De Castella.
The Sport Australia Hall of Fame seeks to inspire all Australians by recognising and promoting the outstanding sporting achievements, contributions and rich traditions of our nation's sportsmen and sportswomen. The Hall of Fame encourages elite sportsmen and women to unite for the betterment of sport. It also builds friendships across the various sporting disciplines, which we trust will strengthen and encourage our future champions. To tonight's inductees, you are now members, because those that have come before you, those that you have admired, and those that have inspired you have deemed you worthy of membership, and they invite you to enter the Hall of Fame as their equals and the equals of those that will follow you. What we require of you is that you continue to inspire young Australians to develop their own uniqueness and abilities to their fullest. Tonight, the honour belongs to you. Your peers honour you, and you are surrounded by friends and admirers. You have our respect. On behalf of your fellow members, I now welcome you warmly into the Hall of Fame, and I trust that tonight will linger long in your memory.
Chairman of the Selection Committee, Mr. Robert De Castella. Ladies and gentlemen, to respond on behalf of the new members, to please welcome, and it's great to see him back, Mr. Bruce Crampton.
Good evening, everyone. Prime Minister Howard and Mrs. Howard, Governor and Mrs. Landry, Governor Jackson Nelson, Sport Australia Hall of Fame members, associate members and inductees, ladies and gentlemen. It's great to be back in Melbourne. It's great to be able to have my wife Marlene see Australia for the first time. It's even greater to be here for the reason that we are with all of you this evening for the 2001 Sport Australia Hall of Fame dinner and induction ceremony. I have been doubly honoured this evening, first by being formally inducted into membership, and secondly by being asked to respond on behalf of this year's inductees. It seems that my selection as spokesperson had something to do with travelling the furthest or seniority, and I'm not sure which category carried the more weight. I know for sure that Michelle, Peter, Nicholas, Phillip, Rod, Brian are forever grateful, just as I am, to the selection committee for inviting us to become members and associate members, respectively, of the Sport Australia Hall of Fame. By that invitation and this induction ceremony, our careers have been given the ultimate recognition, and a perfect crowning touch has been added to whatever we may have accomplished individually. Ladies and gentlemen, what a truly memorable experience this has been. Thank you one and all so very much. Thank you.
Bruce, indeed, thank you. Ladies and gentlemen, once again, a round of applause for our new members of the Sport Australia Hall of Fame. It's been a wonderful night for them. Thank you. Thank you. This year, Australia celebrates 100 years since Federation. In that time, we have established ourselves as one of the great sporting nations of the world. In that time, we have established ourselves as the greatest sporting nation in the world. Let us now look at some of our sportsmen and women and their achievements, which have made us a nation so proud. Ladies and gentlemen, it is now my pleasure to introduce to you the Chairman of the National Council for the Centenary of Federation, Professor Geoffrey Blaney. You do stay here when you've finished. Hold the council.
Prime Minister, Your Excellencies, members of the Hall of Fame, honoured guests. This is the centenary of the nation, a nation which in part was the creation of sport. Perhaps no other nation has been so shaped by sport. In Melbourne, a half-day holiday for the running of the Melbourne Cup dated back to the 1870s. By the 1880s, the running of the Melbourne Cup drew crowds as large as 100,000, or 1 in 3 of the population of this city. The popular poet Adam Lindsay Gordon was a poet of the racecourse. He could be seen at Flemington riding in the steeplechase. His poetry persuaded a generation of Australians to see the wattle blossom as a symbol of this land. Alas, the wattle as a symbol has fallen a little from favour. The song Waltzing Matilda, written just over a century ago, used a tune which came from a racecourse. Originally it was played by a brass band at a race meeting at Warrnambool and then carried by a spectator to Western Queensland, where Banjo Patterson married it to his words. Australian rules football rejoiced in the fact that it was a native game. This was long before the strange idea arose that it was borrowed from Ireland. Australian rules is the older game. By the late 1890s, when federation was in the air, this land was obsessed by spectator sport. The longest funeral procession seen in Melbourne was that of a jockey, Tommy Corrigan. The largest Sydney funeral was that of the world champion sculler, Henry Searle. Just over 100 years ago, cricket was the team sport, the only team sport in which Australia competed against another nation. For Australia to defeat England, therefore, provided a sense of elation far mightier than that provided by such a victory today. At that time, Australians were embarrassed about their convict history. They feared that perhaps they were of inferior stock, physically and morally. Therefore, Australia's victory in the first official test against England in the 1870s gave rise to jubilant editorials in many of the newspapers. Victory seemed to assure the editors that 2 million Australians were as strong as 30 million English people. English papers, please copy. Australia produced a national cricket team before it was a nation. The colours of green and gold were adopted by the Australian 11 before there was a national parliament. Sport was probably the foremost expression of that rising Australian nationalism, which helped to spur the federating of the 6 colonies in the year 1901. In the opinion of the Sydney Bulletin, the Australian cricket team of the late 1890s did more to enhance the cause of Australian federation than all the learned essays and impassioned speeches. I conclude, when the Olympic Games were held in Sydney last year, visitors noticed again and again the patriotism of the occasion. Our national anthem was sung in public like community singing with fervour. In this, the centenary of federation, it is timely to recall that sport was often the vehicle for Australian pride, even before there was an Australian flag, even before there was an Australian national anthem, to express that pride. Long live Australia.
It is my great pleasure to invite Mr. Alan Buckley, Chief Executive of Australian Air Express, to the stage. Alan.
Thank you very much, Craig. What a wonderful night, and I think it's expressed to watch all these sporting legends here before us. It's you just get moved and to see everyone, and we're so lucky, so few of us and so many of you sporting greats.
On the 9th of May this year, at the exhibition buildings here in Melbourne, the home of the first sitting of the Australian Parliament, the nation commemorated the milestones in the journey of Australia through 100 years of nationhood. Australia's character has been forged over time by the contributions of many Australians, some renowned and some not so well known. But on that day in May, the nation recognised a number of Australian achievers whose contributions in one way or another were considered significant. In the field of sport, 2 were recognised, both members, of course, of the Sport Australia Hall of Fame. They were Sir Donald Bradman and Betty Cuthbert. The Hall of Fame is proud of the achievements of both Sir Donald and Betty, and tonight we commemorate the honour accorded to these 2 great sportspeople on that meeting on the 9th of May.
Bradman, now I ask you...
I try and get as many runs as I possibly can, and if in getting those runs I should happen to break any record, well, naturally, I'm very pleased, but I do not deliberately set out to try and break records.
But break records he did, becoming the greatest batsman of all time. When Don Bradman retired from Test cricket in 1948, his incredible batting average stood at 99.94 from 52 Test matches, a record still unmatched. First selected to play for his country in 1928, Bradman dominated world cricket for the next 20 years. When the boy from Bowral, who ceased playing cricket more than 50 years ago, died earlier this year, the news stopped a nation.
Wait for you back home.
The Golden Girl from Parramatta won 4 Olympic gold medals, the highest number ever won by an Australian track and field athlete. Betty Cuthbert emerged as an athletic prodigy in primary school. At 17, she was selected for the 1956 Olympic Games in Melbourne, where she won gold in the 100 metres, 200 metres and the 4x100 metres relay. Cuthbert was injured at the 1960 Rome Olympics and withdrew from the Games. 2 years later, she retired from competition. But in 1964, at the age of 26, she returned to run in the Tokyo Olympics, winning the inaugural 400 metres. Diagnosed with multiple sclerosis in 1969, today she's an active campaigner raising funds and improving public awareness of this debilitating disease.
Now, I'd like to invite John Bradman, representing Sir Donald, and Marjorie Jackson-Nelson, representing Betty Cuthbert, to the stage to accept an award from the Hall of Fame. The certificate from the Hall of Fame commemorating the status accorded to Sir Donald and to Betty as Australian Achievers. I love saying this. Your Excellency, would you like to go first?
Thank you. This is the message that was sent from Betty today asking me to read it. I am sorry I cannot be here tonight to receive this award. Being recognised along with Sir Donald Bradman as the 2 Australian achievers in sport at the Centenary of Federation celebration earlier this year was a great honour for me. I am again honoured tonight that the Sport Australia Hall of Fame, of which I am a very proud member, has seen fit in itself to commemorate this occasion. I'm delighted that Marjorie Jackson-Nelson has agreed to accept the award on my behalf, and I thank you, Marge, for representing me. I often reflect on a photo of us taken when I was 14, never believing I would follow in your footsteps. I would like to take this opportunity of publicly congratulating you on your appointment as Governor of South Australia. Thank you.
Thank you, Marjorie. And now I call upon Mr. John Bradman to say a few words. John.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Prime Minister, Governor John Landy, Neil Fraser, members of the Hall of Fame, and ladies and gentlemen, I'm very delighted to be here and very honoured to be here on behalf of my dad. I can remember the odd circumstance which brought me here in the first place a couple of years ago. We were sitting and he'd just received a letter from Rale Rasic asking, saying that he would be inducted and asking if I could come along and accept it on his behalf. And my dad said to me, "I don't think you should. You don't want all the fuss." And I'd just seen something on television about him and I thought, now that's something I want to deal with. And so I thought I'd come along. And I'm so delighted I did. And the thing that struck me about the Hall of Fame from being here last time and again this time is that it's not just about the excellence of sporting achievement, it's about the quality of those sports people. And I would like the Hall of Fame to perhaps place more emphasis on that. I think not just the excellence of the results, but the quality of the sports people. If you wanted to know what my dad had to say, he would say, please focus on their modesty, not just their excellence, but their modesty.
Let us hear from the voice of youth. I'd like to welcome to the stage tonight Rachel Taylor. Rachel, of course, an Australian rowing Olympic silver medalist.
Well, thank you all very much. First of all, I'd just like to express how difficult it is for me to actually put into words what an enormous honour this is for someone like me to be here in this room full of so many Australians that have actually inspired me in my career, which is still continuing, to do the things that I can only dream of doing. And it's this ability to inspire that is my vision for Australian sport. Inspiration is a word that's been thrown around quite a bit tonight, and I'd just like to define it all for you. It is a divine influence directly and immediately exerted upon the mind or the soul of a person. So I'd just like to share with you a few moments that have really inspired me. In 1992, I was 15 years old, and in 1992, the newly inducted Nick Green rode, along with his teammates in Barcelona, to an outstanding and unforgettable Olympic victory. And I know that a few of the guys are here tonight. And I'd just like to thank them for inspiring me, because I've always been particularly moved when Australian Olympic athletes are standing on the victory dais singing the anthem, flag waving. But when I saw those four guys who I knew from down the Yarra, they were just one of me, one of the Aussies, it was the first time ever that I actually considered that I was capable of doing the exact same thing. So a seed was planted. So thank you guys. I know you're here tonight.
In a moment, the Don Award, but it gives me a great deal of pleasure now to invite to the stage to say a few words and to propose a toast to Australia. Would you please make welcome the Prime Minister of Australia, the Honourable John Howard. Glad you could be here.
Craig. Well, thank you very much, Craig. Your Excellencies, Neil Fraser, Herb Elliott, fellow Australians and fellow sports lovers. Jeanette and I are delighted to be here to support the Sports Hall of Fame, to honour all of those men and women of sport in Australia who have done so much, as Geoffrey Blaney so eloquently said. And can I say, Geoffrey, I've heard many fine speeches from you in this year of federation, but that was amongst the most eloquent. Nobody quite expresses the rich history of Australia as well as Geoffrey does, and what he did was to pinpoint the reality that so many of us feel, and that is that sport has not only been something that has encouraged us and entertained us and challenged us and confronted us, but more than that, it's been something that has shaped our character and touched our soul as a nation. And through the years, and this year has been no exception, indeed, these past few weeks have been no exception, sport is something that brings out great character in people. And the most recent example I saw, and I think many others in this room would have seen, was the tremendous character displayed by Wayne Arthurs. And it's just but the latest example of what sport brings out in people, and particularly what sport brings out in Australians. And it's given us a sense of passionate nationalism that we now see so dramatically illustrated as people unprompted burst into singing the national anthem at sporting events, and it's really something that sport has brought to all of us as Australians. Can I congratulate those that have been inducted into the Sports Hall of Fame tonight. Can I say I was personally very touched that somebody who, like myself, attended Canterbury Boys High School in Sydney, Bruce Crampton, he was 1 or 2 years ahead of me, but he's not many, but he joins all of the others as being great examples of Australian sport. The government is a very strong supporter of the Australian Sports Hall of Fame, and I'm pleased to announce tonight that through the Australian Sports Commission we'll be contributing over the next 4 years a sum of $200,000 to continue to support the operation of the Australian Sports Hall of Fame. And I do want to thank all of those that have come along financially, as well as because of their love of sport, to support the Hall of Fame. And to you, Neil, the leadership that you and Herb and others have given to this movement, to this organisation, is tremendous. And there's no night quite like this in bringing together all of those people that have contributed over the years to all the different sports that Australians play and follow and get involved in and excel in. Congratulations to all of those that have brought honour to our country, that have played their games as they should be played, that have shown true sportsmanship, have brought great dignity and respect to themselves, and also pride to millions of Australians who love sporting achievement, they love sportsmanship, and touched in their daily lives by what sport means to this country. And in that spirit, if I can reach out for a glass of champagne, I would invite everybody to reach out for a glass of something, and to be upstanding and to join me in a toast to Australia, to Australia, to Australia. Oi, oi, oi. Thank you. Thank you. Canterbury Boys High,
Prime Minister, indeed, thank you. And it was interesting to note that Canterbury Boys High School, yourself and Bruce Crampton, it's good to see one of you kicked on. Congratulations, Bruce, well done. I'm going to ask the Prime Minister to stay with us here on stage, because each year the Hall of Fame looks at the year in sport and selects special moments that live in the nation's sporting memory. The Don Award, named after the Sport Australia Hall of Fame's first inductee, Sir Donald Bradman, is not meant to be a best and fairest award, if you like, but is awarded to the sports person who, by his or her example, is deemed to have most inspired the nation in the last 12 months.
A giant of a man with a reputation as a leader to match. In 2001, John Eales took Australia to victory over the British Lions in a wildly successful 3-test match series. Later, he would bow out of international rugby after leading Australia to victory over the All Blacks in the Bledisloe Cup. John Eales. At Sydney 2000, Grant Hackett left Kieran Perkins in his wake to take Olympic gold in the 1500 metres freestyle. At Fukuoka in Japan this year, he erased Perkins' 1500 metres world record from the books in the most commanding style possible. He slashed more than 6 seconds from the mark Perkins had held since 1994. A world champion, a world beater, Grant Hackett. There was a victory over Gustavo Kuerten in Brazil on clay, and then the big one. In 2001, Leighton Hewitt won the US Open men's singles crown, defeating the outstanding player of the previous decade, Pete Sampras. Be it Davis Cup or the major titles, Hewitt has been relentless in his bid to be the best player in the world. In 2001, Leighton Hewitt demonstrated his greatness. The finest moments in sport don't always come with victory. Sometimes it is possible for an athlete to lose with such grace that he or she inspires a nation. In 2001, Patrick Rafter showed millions of Australians that it is possible to be gracious in defeat. His men's singles final against Goran Ivanisevic was a classic that went to 5 engrossing sets. Ivanisevic won the match, but the demeanour of Rafter will provide an inspiration for a generation of youngsters to come. Ladies and gentlemen, Patrick Rafter. Courage comes in so many guises. In 2001, the example set by Australia's Test captain Steve Waugh showed why Australia has risen to be the undisputed champions on the world cricket stage. A calf injury would not stop Waugh from playing in the 5th Ashes Test against the old enemy at the Oval. Waugh scored a gutsy 157 not out. It was his 2nd century of the series, his 27th, in an honour-packed career, but for guts among the very best. Steve Waugh. The cyclone that is Kari Webb continues to shake women's golf. In 2001, the Queenslander added the US Open and LPGA to her burgeoning list of titles. She became the youngest of the 5 women to have won all 4 legs of the Women's Slam, and continues her reign as the greatest woman golfer in the world, Kari Webb.
What a wonderful field of nominations for the Don Award for 2001. Prime Minister, here is the envelope, and I'd invite you to announce the Don Award winner for 2001.
The winner of the Don Award for 2001 is Patrick Rafter.
Please welcome the Rafters. Hi, Josh. A wonderful moment for the Rafter family. Shame you didn't bring them all here. We just squeezed them on the stage. Jim, I suppose as the reigning Father of the Year, I should invite you to say a few words on behalf of, and I'm sure Josh, who's never short of a word, would also like to say a few words. Please welcome Mr. Jim Rafter.
Prime Minister, Your Excellencies, I don't know, I think everybody here creates a situation where we just feel so humble. It's a pretty humiliating situation for us to be in. That's not the right word. A humbling situation for us to be in, and we just can't express how much we appreciate the fact that there are so many great Australians all setting such a fine example for the generations to come.
Is it still vivid, Pat, that memorable Monday as it turned out at Wimbledon for you?
Yeah, it is. I haven't really given a lot of thought because I guess the end result wasn't exactly what I was after, but the walk on, I guess I'm just trying to relive it now, it definitely does send shivers right down my spine, right down my body, and Wimbledon may never see anything like that again.
It was a different crowd, wasn't it? It was a festival atmosphere, wasn't it?
Out of control, mate, out of control. I'm getting it now. I really should probably go back and relive it again, because to see all the Australians and Croatians, but I didn't really look at the Croatians, but the Australians were just remarkable, and to feel at every change of hands, cheering, yelling, I'll never experience anything like it again.
Ladies and gentlemen, we move now to the naming of the latest legend of the Sport Australia Hall of Fame. We are indeed fortunate, on the one hand, that we have so many great sports people in the Hall of Fame. On the other hand, it makes the task Each year of choosing the legend so darn difficult. As you may be aware, all Hall of Famers are elected as equals, and the legend story is another way we can tell their stories to you. Tonight's legend will be the 21st in the Sport Australia Hall of Fame. The current Hall of Fame legends are Sir Donald Bradman, Dawn Fraser, Scobie Breesley, Sir Hubert Opperman, Betty Cuthbert, Jock Sturrock, Yvonne Cawley, Dunk Gray, Ted Whitten, Shirley Strickland, Reg Gasnier, Marjorie Jackson Nelson, Vic Patrick, Shane Gould, Bill Roycroft, Walter Lindrum, Herb Elliott, Margaret Court, Murray Rose and Heather Mackay.
For just a moment, cast your minds back to the days when golf didn't mean titanium shafts, massive metal drivers, awesome power hitters, state-of-the-art golf balls, and a fleet of private jets ferrying their multi-million-dollar owners from tournament to tournament. Let's go back to the days of simplicity and elegance.
As Ozzie Pickworth walks from the tee, the idol of Melbourne, placid Peter Thomson, takes up his stunts. Thomson is Australia's greatest golfer.
A golfer who strode to the ball briskly and struck it without notable effort. A champion whose record in major titles has been unequalled by his countrymen before or since. He was one of a cavalcade of young Australians who made their mark on the world stage in the post-war years of the 50s. In his own words, playing golf is not an art at which one can demonstrate one's gifts. It is a craft, a trade, a profession, prize fight, all in one. And what a scrapper he was. In the toughest and most time-honoured arena of all, the British Open, Thomson would finish in the top 10 18 times between 1951 and 1971. After finishing second in 1952 to Bobby Locke at Royal Lytham and equal second to Ben Hogan a year later at Carnoustie, Thomson would claim the first of his 5 Open Championships at Royal Birkdale in 1954. In 1955, the Open returned to St Andrews, and Thomson was there to reclaim it. In 1956, he would make it a hat-trick of wins with his victory at Hoylake.
This is a very unexpected honour.
He had done what Varden and Hagan, Jones and Locke had failed to do, to win the British Open 3 years in succession. In fact, he was the first man to win the title in 3 successive years since the championship was decided over 4 rounds in 1892. And no man has matched the feat since. Thomson wasn't finished with the Open, not by any means. In 1957, he returned to St Andrews and finished runner-up to Bobby Locke, his great friend and adversary. In 1958, he shot 278 at Lytham and St Anne's, the lowest total in British Open history. But it was only enough to tie with Dave Thomas.
Thomson was to finish the 36 holes 4 strokes ahead of his rival. His 4th win, but even so, it was one of the finest efforts by a British player for many a golfing year.
There would be a 5th title. In 1965, he would return to Royal Birkdale, and with the final round 71, take the Open once again. Only Harry Varden with 6 had won the title more often. While Thomson had dominated the Open stage in England and Scotland, he had a profound influence on golf in this country. He'd won the Australian Open at Metropolitan in 1951, but would fill his trophy cabinet before winning again at Commonwealth in 1967. He would win a 3rd title at Kooyonga in South Australia in 1972. There were so many famous victories, none more so than the Canada Cup of 1959.
Peter Thomson, 4 times British Open champion, tees off for Australia. And now his partner, Kel Nagel. And the Parade of Nations is underway as Australia and Ireland begin the 72-hole track. Thomson has his putt for a 66. It's close, but not quite good enough. Thomson makes sure this time, and it's a 67 for Peter. On the tee, Peter Thomson starts his last round. Australia and the United States are paired together, so now it's Snead's turn to drive. With 4 of the world's great golfers in the same foursome, the largest crowd in Australian golf history follows this match. Here's Thomson hitting to the final green. He's 1 over par. It's a magnificent shot that stops 10 feet from the pin. Thomson gets his par 4, and his 72-hole total is 275, the same as Leonard of Canada. Australia wins the Canada Cup by 10 shots over the United States in second place. A great victory for Thomson and Nagel as they repeat their Canada Cup victory of 1954.
There would be campaigns in the United States. In the mid-50s, Thomson won the Texas Centennial Open, beating Middlecoff and Gene Littler in a playoff. He would return in the 80s and dominate as a senior. In 1985 alone, he won 9 times. Thomson, the golfer, was a globetrotter. His list of tournament victories encompassing Europe, South Africa, the United States, Australasia, and most importantly, Asia, where he played such a major role in the development of golf in the Far East. As he says himself, the professional's life is an odd mixture of maestro and virtuoso. Not so long ago, he was a teacher and club maker, a servant of the game. Now it is possible to be an actor, an entertainer, an entrepreneur, and a manufacturer all at once. Tonight, we honour a great Australian, a great sportsman who's plied his chosen profession with dignity, with integrity, and with honour, and has been an example to all who have played the game. Tonight, at the Sport Australia Hall of Fame, we proudly elevate Peter Thomson to the status of legend.
Have a seat, kind sir, and I'd like now to invite your wife Mary and your old mate Kel Nagel to also join us on stage. Please give them a warm welcome. And just to let you know, there's 19 other wonderful people who are going to join us. The entire Thomson clan are here tonight. Let's make them welcome on stage. Come on down.
This is a great surprise to me. I'd rather not do this, but anyway, thank you for that. You know, I'm in the midst of great sportsmen who've done marvellous things, and I must say that any reference to my humility or modesty comes from Don Bradman, with whom I grew up as the legend and the sporting hero who had that humility and modesty. And my God, if you did anything in sporting life, you had to match yourself against this great man. And it taught me, and I'm sure it taught everybody of my era, that you must be modest in your achievements. And still today, that applies. And I think Pat Rafter is the epitome of Don Bradman. And I'm pleased to hear that.
It is an honour to propose that Peter Thomson be elevated to Legend of Australian Sport. It's now appropriate for me to put the motion before the members of the Sport Australia Hall of Fame and all others present representing Australian sporting community. All those in favour, please show by acclamation. The motion has been carried, Peter, unanimously. And I would now like to invite the Managing Director of Carlton United Breweries, Mr. James King, to present the certificate and trophy to Peter.
growing up as a young boy, hitting balls like Bruce Crampton, but not, or trying to hit balls like Bruce Crampton, but not being successful, I think you've been a true inspiration to all of us hackers out on the golf course. You've been not only a fantastic champion, you've been a great ambassador for your family, you've been a great ambassador for your country, and you've been a great ambassador for your sport. And it is a great pleasure to recognise you as a true legend of sport and a welcome recipient of the award for the 2001 Sport Australia Legend for 2001. So congratulations, Peter. Thanks.
I hope you find somebody next year and years after to equally thrill somebody like me who's been through it, to honour them like you've done tonight. Thank you.
Thank you. Congratulations to the new associates, the new members, our new legend. The winner of the Don Award, Patrick Rafter. We'll see you at the Sport Australia Hall of Fame dinner in 2002. Good night.